Now that we have looked at these changes that are expected with the proposed OQ rule, let's talk about what technology has to offer that can actually make this easier for you if you're in the position of compliance. Tom, both you and Todd have both outlined several specific program changes that are going to require a comprehensive tracking and reporting effort. So I'm going to dig into a few of those. Perhaps one of the biggest changes that we've outlined today and is present in the OQ NPRM is the criteria for what it takes to be a qualified person. In the current rulemaking, an evaluation is sufficient. However, that soon may be changing, as we've discussed. Under the new OQ rule, qualification will be the result of an individual meeting 3 co-requisite requirements. This will include evaluation, training on the task at hand, as well as task-specific policy and procedure awareness. This is a really big change. So for those in the audience who are heavily involved in OQ program compliance, you know what the current rulemaking requires. A lot of organization and a lot of paperwork. Now imagine tripling that. Technology can help you with this. Look for a centralized qualification tracking software to make this a much easier task. A single source solution to help you streamline those efforts will be really helpful because it will keep all of your requirements, everything from managing those requirements to tracking them to notification of change and to the documentation side of it being in one location will make this much simpler. This would also include, ideally, a one-stop shop where you can manage the task list itself, which we all know is going to be growing based on what we talked about earlier, where new construction would be incorporated into the new rule. Also, there will be a need to manage all reevaluation, retraining intervals, span of control, as we discussed earlier, and even look for a really good method and an integrated solution for managing updates or a need for re-review of requirements. This will make the job of managing multiple requirements simpler by relating everything and putting it in the same place. Lastly, I'll say that whatever software program you choose, ensure that it has a simple user interface. Because a software program can be really great, but if you can't figure out how to use it, then it's pretty much worthless. And we talked earlier about how the OQ NPRM requires companies to establish criteria and training requirements for becoming an evaluator. Well, this sounds simple enough, but there's a lot of tracking and documentation that's related to such a program. Finding the right software to track and house not only evaluation results, but also the evaluation records, everything from who was evaluated, when did the evaluation take place, who was the evaluator, and what kind of training has that evaluator had. That's going to be key for you. Look for a simple user interface, again, something that's going to be intuitive enough for all users, especially since the ones conducting the evaluations probably spend more time in the field than they do behind a computer. We talked earlier about the OQ NPRM requiring training as a prerequisite to qualification. Individuals who historically were deemed qualified by passing an evaluation, that's no longer going to be good enough. Under the proposed rulemaking, training must also take place. And that training needs to be tracked, verified, and when applicable, refresher training will need to be administered. With the inclusion of new construction tasks that Tom and Todd discussed earlier, you can also expect the number of people who will need to be trained to increase significantly. While most agree that on-the-job training is ideal, it's not always practical, especially in a real-world, fast-paced environment. With so many people now being subject to retraining requirements and with the increase in the number of people being subject to these requirements, it's really important to find a reliable and effective training source. But it's also equally important to find an efficient way to deliver the training. Most successful companies are looking for quality, computer-based training programs to help streamline compliance with this new requirement. Veriforce Training Management, for example, is the Veriforce product that helps our clients meet these requirements even today. It includes assignment features, completion reporting, and access to client training libraries. Our cover task training library is interactive, relatable, and built in collaboration with subject matter experts, so it makes sense to the people taking the training. This is the kind of product that you want to look for. And I'll say this again, a simple user interface is really important. For example, in Veriforce, trainees by default can only view the page where they have to take the training. This makes it easy for the trainee to find the task at hand, take the training, and get to work. We also talked earlier about, in addition to the new training requirements, policy and procedure awareness is going to be a requirement in order for an individual to be deemed qualified. Unlike evaluation and task training, which in many cases follows contractor qualified personnel from one client job site to another, policy and procedures are very specific to clients or to the operators that they belong to. We have a number of clients who already require policy and procedure review and acknowledgement as a prerequisite to qualification. And I can tell you, while there may be one or two evaluations or training courses per qualification, there are typically numerous policies and procedures associated with just one qualification task. And this is a lot to keep track of. This is where the really big spreadsheets come from. Or you can let technology help you. The most successful companies are looking for integrated requirement management systems to help manage all of those requirements in one location. Again, integrating all of those requirements. And also another thing to look for is a way to track each record and provide flexibility to make updates in this one simple user interface. Management of change is something that we talked about earlier as well. The OQ NPRM requires the energy and utility companies that it regulates to communicate change related to their OQ program. This includes changes to evaluation criteria, task training, and one or all policies and procedures that may have an update or change. Look for software which provides the ability to auto-generate emails or some other effective method of mass communication to ensure that affected parties are notified of a change, especially as it relates to task qualification. In addition, if retraining is required and the qualified person does not take action, there needs to be an easy, simple way to remove that person's qualification until the requirement is met. This is even more reason to look for an integrated software solution. The NPRM also contains multiple requirements related to program effectiveness, including requiring companies to have a written process to ensure their qualification program is effective and conduct reviews of that at least annually, not to exceed 15 months. The right compliance management system can help streamline this process. Look for a single source that can help you centrally capture program metrics, report measures, and identify trends, and then take those trends and determine whether or not you need to make a change to your program to improve it or strengthen it. Things to look for are organized record-keeping processes and also a vendor that has expertise in the area of demonstrating program compliance. An ideal situation would be finding a solution that has well-established process for quality control checkpoints and auditing not only of qualified personnel, but also of evaluators, and obviously documentation. For our clients, providing an all-encompassing audit program has proven invaluable. We audit documentation, paperwork, and personnel on a daily basis to ensure reporting compliance for our clients. We also report all of this in one simple user interface. Again, a single source solution. Lastly, I'll talk about record keeping. Record keeping is crucial. In the world of compliance, if you didn't document it, it didn't happen, right? Some important things to look for, again, are a centralized single source solution so that all documentation is in one place. And the ability to provide in a timely fashion, that documentation when asked for is very important, especially during an inspection. You can ask anybody who's been through one. Finally, I would suggest that you look for a technology company that has good information security practices, especially when you're trusting an outside vendor with your documentation for your program. Look for a vendor that's going to have secure, reliable document storage, including redundancy of servers, and ensure that your document retention periods are adequate. So that's it from the technology side. With that, I'll pass it back to you, Tom.
In summary, the proposed amendments to the OQ rule will have significant impact for most OQ programs. It's important to determine the gaps between your current program and the new requirements. The right technology make bridging those gaps much easier, and Veriforce is here to help.
That wraps up our presentation today. Now we'd like to try to address some of the questions that you may have. Let's see here. Here's a question about training. The question says, as an operator, I have internal training for my employees. How can I get my contractors that same kind of training? Jessica, this sounds like a good question for you. Can you handle that one?
Sure, Tom, thanks. That's a really good question. A lot of our clients ask that same question when they come on board and they have these really well-developed internal training programs that were related to their specific tasks. And they ask, how do I get this to my contractors and manage, communicating it to hundreds or sometimes thousands of actual contractor workers? Veriforce Training Management is the tool that we offer our clients to help them meet that requirement. They can manage their training library within our one system. They can manage that for their own employees and also assign it to their contractors and make it a requirement to be able to perform work on their facilities. It also includes the ability for assignments, gap reporting, and just gives them a really good picture of where their contractors are at as far as training requirements are concerned.
Thank you, Jessica. Another question is, what kind of new construction tasks will be considered covered tasks? I think I'll field that one. I believe there'll be tasks similar to our current new construction for 80% SMICE pipelines. Covered tasks that you might see but not limited to pipeline offloading and handling, the receipt of the pipe right into the yard and loading, hauling, and stringing. Other tasks that you can imagine would be pipeline inspection, excavation ditches, pipe bending, welding, field coating inspections, jeeping, and coating repairs right in the field. You know, all of the new construction tasks, including lowering the pipe right into the ditch, to name a few. Okay, Todd, I think this one's for you. What do you see the biggest impacts for operators?
Well, Tom, I think the biggest impacts for us will be the expanded cover task list, assuring that we have the expected tasks for new construction, integrity management, and those activities we may assign to emergency response personnel. And then also adding the training element on top of the qualification piece for that, along with the review of our policies and procedures. Another one is the management of change. How are we going to communicate those changes that we have, especially when we make some type of significant change to our own policy or procedure to our contractors who are performing that work on our behalf? And then also the program effectiveness. How are we going to staff up for that? How are we actually going to go out there and perform the effectiveness reviews of our programs that PHMSA is going to be expecting us to do?
That's all the time we have for today. If you submitted a question and we didn't get to it, we'll respond by email in the next few days. If you have additional questions, go ahead and submit them now. If you'd like to talk to someone at Veriforce about some of the information we covered today, you can contact Jessica or myself, or you can contact Todd by the email addresses here. Once again, you can expect to receive an email with a link to the recorded webinar if you want to watch again or share it with colleagues. For your convenience, we will also be distributing a copy of the slides to everyone who registered for the webcast today. We hope that you found our webinar informative. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great rest of the week.